They get a massive bombardment in these positions that they're in. Back to the book. The Germans must be softening us up in preparation for something more serious. Their ammunition seemed unlimited. The bombardment ended quite suddenly, rather as it had started. This would be it. Nudging Williams to get his head up from behind the barricade, I shouted a warning to the others, Elkins and Bauer in the next room, and the two signalers who had moved up to the bedroom at the back. The stutter of the Bren gun cut across the words. Bauer's rifle thudded next door, and then Williams was firing a succession of bursts from his Bren gun. In the orchard opposite, Germans were running through the trees towards us. Several dropped. This could only be the start of an attack. Now from either flank, the sound of rifles and machine guns reached us, accompanied by the thud of exploding grenades. The attack was coming in all along our front. Some of the Germans among the fruit trees were firing back. A couple of rifle bullets splintered the front of the wardrobe. Then more gray figures were lumbering towards us through the trees. Some fell, others ducked behind the puny trees. They didn't stand a chance. It was like shooting targets on the practice range. The Germans and the mortars had been forced to stop because their troops were so close. It was possible to fire slow, carefully aimed shots with little or no distraction. The only way out of the orchard was through the single gap in the high fence, but the enemy soldiers never got within 20 yards of it. A tall German officer was standing in the middle of the drive, out in the open, clear of the trees, waving his arms to the men behind him. No more than 50 yards away, every detail of his face and uniform was clearly visible. He was a handsome young man, fair-haired and smartly turned out. Already he'd been standing there for about 5 seconds, encouraging his men to advance. As I leveled my sights on the German officer, I knew that I was looking at someone who was just about to die. It seemed a pity. He was such a courageous boy, just the sort one would like to have had as a platoon commander. My fingers started to squeeze the trigger, but it was too late. Someone else had fired. The German fell, spread-eagled, and lay still. At least he died quickly. The death of the young officer marked the end of the attack. Now, no one moved in the orchard except for a single wounded man squirming his way back through the trees. So, it's interesting when you take the leader and the leader goes down and the attack's over. Now, also, it's important to note that although the leader stood up and encouraged the attack by taking that risk of being out there in front of everyone, in this case, it didn't work out well because he got shot, killed, and the attack faltered. Perhaps if he could have found a little bit better of a position to do that from, then maybe he would have been able to encourage his troops and stay alive. Back to the book, but we had won no more than a temporary respite. 15 minutes later, we could hear the unnerving noise once again. Tracks were clattering towards us. So I don't know why I haven't talked about this yet, but here you have these airborne troops on the ground, and their biggest fear is tanks. And you've heard me talk many times about my love for tanks and how effective and awesome they are as tools and as weapons, and the way that the tankers utilize them. They're just awesome machines. But here you have the tables turned, and the good guys don't have any effective way of stopping these tanks. You can shoot a machine gun all day long at a Panzer tank, and it's not going to do a damn thing. And so it can just, and by the way, you hide in a building, cool. A tank will go right through a building. They go right through buildings. They will go right through a building. Like, it looks like a construction piece of heavy equipment. That's what it looks like. It'll go right through a building like it's nothing. So these guys are absolutely horrified of the tank showing up. That's their fear. Tracks were clattering toward us. A gun thudded, and the dark red house opposite began to fall apart as round after round crashed into it. Muzzle flashes from the far side of the orchard revealed the position of the attacker, but there was nothing we could do. At least the men were not waiting in the house, but slipping one after another out the door, back across the road to the headquarter house. On either side, the guns were firing. Now it was our turn. The tank wrecks some of the houses, and then the tank leaves.